Your goal after watching this video is to know how to convert back and forth between fractions and percents. So first things first, hopefully after CPR all year long, you remember that percent means out of 100. If you need more time to write this down, you can pause the video, but I'm going to go on. Okay, so to write a percent as a fraction then is really easy because whenever you see the percent sign, you know that that means out of 100. So 5% is 5 out of 100. Some of you, I've noticed, when you turn a percent into a fraction, you write this. You write the 5 out of 100 correctly, but then you keep the percent sign. What that means, if I were to read that, I would say 5 out of 100 out of 100. I'd have to say out of 100 twice, which doesn't make any sense. So putting the 5 over or out of 100 replaces the percent sign. If you put 5 out of 100, you don't need the percent sign because, again, this says 5 out of 100 out of 100, which sounds silly. Nobody talks like that. All right, so 5% means 5 out of 100. 168% means 168 out of 100. 36% means out of 100, so 36% means 36 out of 100. And 83% means 83 out of 100. All right, now I wrote those as fractions, and at the most basic level, that's perfect. However, the instructions say write the percent as a fraction or mixed number in simplest form. So then we need to simplify that. So I can say 5 out of 100. Both of those numbers are divisible by 5. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 100 20 times. So 5% as a fraction is 5 out of 100, or simplified, 1 out of 20. Number 2, 168 out of 100. I know that both of those are divisible by 2. 168 divided by 2 is 84. And 100 divided by 2 is 50. And I say, okay, those are both even, so I can divide them by 2 again. And some of you might see bigger numbers that you can divide with these by, and if you do, it's great, it'll just be faster for you. 84 divided by 2 is 42. 50 divided by 2 is 25. 2 cannot go into both of these because 25 is not an even number. 3 cannot, 4 cannot, 5 cannot. There's nothing that can go into both of those. So my final step is to write this as a mixed number. 25 goes into 42 once. So I'm going to take 25 of those 25ths out, and that will be one whole. And then how many pieces will I have left over? 42 minus 25. All right, so 1 and 17 25ths is this fraction in simplest form. Let's move on to 36 out of 100. Can that be simplified? Yes, they're both even, so we know for sure those numbers are both divisible by 2. 36 divided by 2 is 18. 100 divided by 2 is 50. Again, both even numbers, so at the very least I can divide them by 2. Again, if you see a bigger number that goes into both, you can just do that right away. 18 divided by 2 is 9. 50 divided by 2 is 25, and that is in simplest form. Last one, 83 out of 100. I don't know any numbers. I know 2 doesn't go into 83 because 83 is odd. 3 doesn't go into 100. 4 won't go into 83. 5 does not go into them. So it's pretty safe to assume that 83 over 100 is already in simplest form. Okay, the next question on here, the question that comes from all of these, notice my lovely highlighting color, is a percent a ratio? Is a percent a ratio? A percent is a ratio because if you score, let's look at this first example. I didn't mean to scribble it out, I thought I had a highlighter. 5%. If you score 5% on an exit quiz or on a test, that means out of every 100 questions, you got 5 right. But does that necessarily mean that there were exactly 100 questions on the test? No. That means if there had been 100, you would have gotten 5 of them correct on that test. All right? It might mean that actually there were only 20 and you got 1 of them correct. It might mean that there were 40 and you got 2 of them correct. So percent is a ratio because it doesn't always mean that there is necessarily exactly 100, but it's telling you if there were 100 for every 100 total, you got however many correct. So a percent, yes, percent is a ratio. Okay, so now we're going to go the other way. We just took percents and wrote them as fractions. So now we're going to take fractions and write them as percent. And if I look at this first one, 31 out of 50. All right, remember a percent means out of 100. So the question is 31 out of 50 would be what out of 100? I'm going to look and I'm going to say, okay, how did we get from 50 to 100? How do we get from 50 to 100? We multiplied by 2. So then I need to multiply 31 by 2 as well. 31 times 2 is 62. So if you scored, if there was a test and there were 50 questions and you got 31 right, all right, that would be 62%. It'd be 62 out of 100. So since it says write your answer as a percent, we need to then write as our final answer 62. But instead of writing out of 100 with a fraction bar and the number 100, we'll use the percent sign because percent means out of 100. Okay, number 6, 7 out of 25. So our question would be, if we want to turn that into a percent, what would that be out of 100? So 7 out of 25 equals 1 out of 100. So we're saying, okay, they took 25, they took our total points, and they multiplied it by 4. 25 times 4 is 100. So I need to do that to the top. 7 times 4 is 28. So 7 out of 25 is the same as 28 out of 100. And instead of writing as a fraction out of 100, I'm going to use the percent sign. So that right there says 28 out of 100. Next, 19/20. We need to write it as a percent. So what would 19 out of 20 be if instead we're measuring out of 100? So 20 to get to 100, we take 20 times 5. So let's take 19 times 5 as well. And if you take 19 times 5, you get 95. 95 out of 100 can be written as 95%. Last one. This one's a little bit more interesting. Anytime you have a fraction that is greater than, or anytime you have a mixed number, so it's saying you have something greater than 1, your percent is going to be greater than 100. So there are a few ways to do this. You could turn this into an improper fraction. So 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3. So 1 1/2 is the same as 3 halves. What would that be out of 100? And then I'd say, okay, to get from 2 to 100, we multiply by 50. To get from 3 to its number out of 100, we need to multiply that by 50. And 3 times 50 is 150. So 150 out of 100 is 150%. Or if you realize that 1 whole is 100% and a half is 50%, you could add those together and get 150%.